Down. Yes, there we go. Hello, Paul. How are you today? Welcome to the Conscious Business Podcast.
Great to be here, Phoebe.
It's great to have you. And wow, it's such a I think since we've spoken, every time we've spoken, it's been, there's been so much change and you're doing so many amazing things. And I'm so excited to talk about this on the show. But before we go in, I'm going to firstly introduce you so that my audience know a bit more about you and the background of what you do. So, Paul is the founder of Paul Higgins Mentoring and also the Sales Machine. Paul helps business owners to scale and live a life with no limits. He's had over 29 years of rich business experience with 18 years working at Coca-Cola and running his own startups for 11 years, including a successful exit, and has mentored over 271 business owners. Paul loves to help build profitable and sustainable businesses delivered in an accelerate sales program. And what he has learned from the Coca-Cola company and running his own startups is going to be explained in today's interview, but also is incorporated in his methodology when he works with business owners. Now, Paul, at age 18, you were diagnosed with a condition called polycystic kidney disease, and that obviously changed your life. Knowing what was to come, you changed the way you approached your life to live your life in full, where you challenge yourself even more as a continual learner and you help others make more impact. With over 18 years in corporate, you've basically taken control of your health and transferred your system thinking to the cloud industry. How, like, what a profound, I guess, background and experience. It seems like there is so much, that you've experienced. There's so much that we have to learn from you. And for those that are tuning in, that are listening, Paul Higgins has, he's got one of the most incredible, we call it the sales machine, which is a system that basically allows business owners on LinkedIn to have a tool that helps them to get more engagement. Paul, we've just lost your camera there for a moment.
Oh,
Yes, we can hear you.
yeah. Unfortunately, I can see myself, which is never pleasant. Maybe.
We can't see you, but we can hear you. I think it just says the camera's disabled at the moment, but that's fine because as it's a podcast, all that matters is the audio, and we can edit these parts out anyway.
Okay, great. Well, yeah. Can't see anything my end other than me. So,
It must be the internet connection, and um, maybe what's happening up north in Sydney is transferring down to Melbourne.
yeah. Well, I didn't know that.
But that's okay.
I just wondered why the internet wasn't as good when there's storms. And apparently, it's so when the internet doesn't work as well. So that's some of the reasons why. I always thought it was.
Yeah, I had no idea about that. It's yeah, the internet's a funny thing, but it's also a great thing to bring us all together. Now, Paul, I'd love to know, you have such a vast I you have such a vast career and experience, and so much experience, especially in corporate and working at Coca-Cola. What were one of the things that you discovered, or what were the things that you discovered from working in corporate in Coca-Cola that was different when you started your own business and when you're helping business owners and companies with, you know, with their startups or with their products and services? What were the main differences between corporate and working for yourself?
Well, I suppose I had. So one is yes, we did get a view into a lot of one Coke company, Coca-Cola, for all that 18 years, but we had thousands of customers. So, I was always seeing you're being told by, but the Coke company, what I always remember of just they're always forward thinking. So, they're always thinking about what can we do next, what innovation, what thing. You just never got a chance to. Well, how do we sell? How do we sell more? How add more value to customers? How do we service? It was like that ever pursuit of that was something that really like you companies like that. But when I went and did some large companies when I left, it just wasn't the same culture. So I think that's really stood out to me at Coke, and then that transferred across. Whether it's nature or nurture, I love to do things better. How can we, by nature I'm that way, but also working in a was fantastic. And then companies, and they've had other experiences, but it's just not the same passion, I suppose, to a company. Right? It's not a sophisticated that they did business was very sophisticated.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any drawbacks to having, a sophisticated system and an established system compared to when there's a lot more room for change and ideas and new ideas because a business is perhaps more new or maybe even less rigid? Was it flexible? What was it like?
Look, overall, it's hard to move the Titanic, right? And yes, some things would. I think one of the things is, the Coke company made so much its main products, which is predominantly, and Coca-Cola in particular, that if you were a business in another, it was very hard to do. Look, there's the 3-year payback. Sorry, and I'm like, well, actually, for some of this, it's very difficult to say, yes, we will give you a 3-year payback. And they wanted to manufacture, produced, run that line as quick as possible. Whereas, for me, I was innovative in the juice and the dairy. I headed up those, and they said, they just couldn't get the unit because it wasn't a one running down the line, right? So a lot of drawback, and we used to have. I acquired quite a lot of companies and then tried to integrate them, and we used to have a joke with is that culture, right? There was the quality facilities that the Coke company had by a company, and it wasn't to that standard. So you send it broke straight away just by implementing. Yes, it was great to be part of a global business history, but yeah, it's drawbacks when you were trying to innovate or when you're trying to. I experienced myself.
Yeah, wow. And did you see yourself when you started working there? Did you know that you'd be there for such a long time, or did it just happen that you ended up there throughout those years? Were you all? I mean, obviously now in current times, it's rare. I mean, it might also be that I'm I guess a millennial, and the way we look at jobs is, 2 to 5 years is, for me especially, it's a long commitment because I tend to I think a lot of people tend to want to have challenges and be creative and change, and we're very adaptable to change. Did you think that it was going to be such a long time, or and was that something that really enhanced what you do now with obviously the sales machine, that what you do with cloud business owners as well, and your mentoring program?
Yeah. So in short, no. My dad worked there, so he worked there for 25 years. Could walk, you know, policy of not employing children. It was like, no, never thought. Long story short, I was about to go overseas. They were desperate for a rep. I said, I'll do it for 6 wanted to do. And then the reason for that is because I was so in months, or, like if you weren't promoted within 2 years, great job, right? So it just constantly evolves. Business constantly evolves. So, like we started as only soft lift. We had alcohol, we had that I'd started. So the business constantly changed. And to me, it's, people now, if I look at a LinkedIn resume, it's like, wow, changing companies every 2 years. And I get that. The thing of is what's right. So when you've, that you want, or the competencies you want, and if you can't for somewhere else, but I was very fortunate that every down the Coke company provided those for me. So yes, I had, but I'm like, you know what? I'm actually getting all of this that I love. So that's why I stayed 18 years. But never had any intent to spend more. I actually never had any intent to work there.
Mm, wow. And how incredible that you ended up there 18 years, and discovering obviously the ins and the outs of what they do, and how such a successful organization empire.
And I think the biggest thing is, yes, it can be also, it's like someone's strengths, right? If you've got a great, it can become a weakness. Let's see, especially here in Australia, that sugar. Number one, you mentioned before that I've got a condition called it's it's a natural birth that I get it. So unfortunately, my kids are it as well, but it was passed on. But a lot of people that's through sugar, which causes diabetes. So I'm sort of sitting here thinking, look, I love this company, I love, but do I really want to continue to work for a company that is, actually a lot of sugar into consumers around the world? And it was going to be them to overcome that, because I'm be if you looked at it, there was cigarette companies, alcohol, and three biggest support sponsors. I watched an ad just before I left where it was actually the sponsor for the cricket. I'm like, wow, just how much it is. And I saw that it was going to be, and that sort of played out. So the share price did, because yes, they've tried to innovate, but because they made so much money out of to move away.
Yeah. And did that kind of change your view on health and wellness? Was that something that, uh, what was the culture like in terms of wellness back then? And how has it changed now? Or do you think that's changed at all?
Yeah, definitely. So when I first, everyone just drank Coke, but when I left, I was probably the world. Right, people used to laugh that you'd walk into my office and I'd have like half empty bottles everywhere. I just drank lots of water, which was great. Right. So I think it got much better, and it's like now, but I do think, as the consumer trends change, there's some people 20 bottles of Coke a day, at work. that's just not good for you. So for me, yes, to really take I could run my business from home. So that was the reason I left. But part of it also was, I needed to take care of myself, like stress. Stress is something that was going to lead to my kidney failure. You only get, you might get 20 years, one of those, and the longer you can last with your natural kidneys, the better. And me, that meant that the healthier, the less stress, less flying, the less everything else that brings meant that I was going to be better. And I actually had a surgery to remove my, think of like half of a soccer ball. It was sort of that size. My surgeon, I woke up in ICU, and the surgeon himself, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I won't go into the details. He said all the hard work that you'd put in
Oh.
health and leaving corporate and all of that is basically what saved you. Yeah, it was really big, and just have on your birthday, just have a full medical. Do you hear where someone health and on get that checked, right? It's a 45 minutes once a year, and they'll bulk bill it. So, but you are the most important thing on the planet. Just take care. Fortunate, I was forced that way because of my haven't strongly recommend that health is it's an oxymoron, right? Because you look after your health, but also because you're so addicted to running your business, get away from it.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. And I think putting your health first before your business or your career or finances is way, way, way more important, because ultimately, no matter how much you're making, you're not going to be able to spend it and enjoy it if you can't live long and well when you're wealthy. And I think a lot of people forget that. And one guest that I've had on the show, Richard Patterson, speaks about the importance of knowing who is relying on you and your health. So, we forget that our health is actually not about us, but also the people that rely on us.
Yeah, well, I took 2000 and family, so I've got two children for 8 weeks because I'm thinking this could be, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So I thought, well, if
Yeah.
I don't make it, something happens, whatever. At least we've had that experience of a lifetime, which we still to bring experience. New house planned as well, so I really prepared everything. I might not make this through, and I was forced into that situation. But the lucky thing, and you also do the same thing, you're just going to be better off.
Yeah. And so when um when did you start to realize that I mean, did you start your own business after the diagnosis, or when did you start realizing that, you had so much? Because to me, you're like a business coach. I see you as a business mentor, a guru in this space. Like sales and marketing, especially, is one of your fortes. Did you know that you had a knack for that, or did you kind of fall into that after the diagnosis?
Well, look, the fortunate thing is I knew this at 18. On 18, very difficult, right? So I think brother's got the exact same condition, and he's in a didn't have as much stress, etc. And he's not. One way of looking is that, yes, my path in corporate, but also failing maybe sooner than others. But so it was sort of something in the back of my mind, and then just as it's called kidney fog, where you basically can't your worst hangover. If you're not a drinker, you haven't had sleep for feeling all the time, and it just reduced it capacity to. I sort of knew then that okay, I've got to. And look, Coke is an amazing company. It's very supportive, but I didn't want to after me. And
Yeah.
especially being a director, it's not as if do part time or something, right? It was very, very demanding. So it's a intense role. So and people want to do that role. And I didn't want to hold people were at full capacity because I sort of set it up. But I started and coaching of people because I love people. I love that. But I realized I wasn't good. I made a much better mentor because of all my experience. 2 hours of podcast a day at 2.5 times speed. I've covered every book I've ever. It was a nightmare because I had like a room. I'm thinking I've got all this knowledge. I'd love to share it. So to mentoring, and I also realized that I love people that business meant so much to them. Like, you've got the paycheck, and yes, you work hard. Someone's got your back. Your own business, if you lose a major, impacts your school fees. Like it's a completely different. That had a passion for what they did. We really invested more of a change and a difference with them than what.
I absolutely agree. And I love that you've brought this up because I think that there is this misunderstanding that, business is the dream. And I think for many of us, business is the dream, but it does also, like you mentioned, come with a lot of risks, and it can happen quite quickly. Whereas, we can scale very quickly as well, but business owners can also lose it all very quickly as well. But you mentioned that stability, which I think is great, especially when people have kids and, like you mentioned, school fees. Wow, I can't imagine what it would be like for a parent to have to take their child out of a private school into a different school, for example, because of their business. So that's a really great thing that you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's very humbling, right? Because Coke, everything, and then I remember the first hotel I went to, Sydney. It's a little bit. It was like a $70 a night. Staying wherever I could, 5-star to that. It's to do, and that cash flow, to build that up. So you've the most important thing I could ever get yourself, it's your family. So you got to have that conversation with you. The things that they're used to will straight away. So I had to say that, look, 12 months whilst I build, and then I was fortunate to take in business, and they had amazing. We don't send our kids, or didn't send our kids, but what we wanted to do is show them the world. So that's what we did, was to travel, and I was able to do that with my own business. Happened straight up. With it's all planned enough, if that makes sense. I always say to people, whatever revenue figure you think you're going to make, halve it.
I think that's so important, Paul. And I think that what you're sharing right now is the reality of what it's like to be a business owner for a lot of business owners. And I agree that we've got to have a plan, and without a plan, we plan to fail. And also we've got to. It's important to be optimistic, but it's also very important to be realistic as well, and to plan with figures that are conservative. So I think that's great. Paul,
And
I have Yeah, go.
thing there is what I didn't do. Like I got a coach to decorporatize myself and make myself better at small business. I've always had a coach or a mentor myself, but I think the thing quick enough is to find people that had been a community that had walked in my shoes. So that's why these days, because it was something at the start and it would have helped me. I think that, all the challenges you're having, most not unique, you're a unique individual, but you're so try to get support, through Phoebe, through other ways. It's that you've got to, like in corporate, where you got very competitive and you don't often talk about your challenges. In small business, everyone wants to help, like a small business owner, right? Because we're not fighting for the next job, promotion, right? It's a big global world out there. So I think that look into as quick as possible.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that the mindset in business is that there's enough for everybody. So even like one of my good friends is in marketing and does almost the same thing as I do, but we both know we've got different strengths. That she loves websites, and even though we offer web, I love social media. So we both still refer clients to each other when when we don't have the capacity, or when when it's just easier for the other person and we know it will benefit the other person more. So I totally agree that it's a different way of thinking for sure in business. Now, you transferred your system thinking to the cloud industry. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So look, I've always had remember as a brand new rep, I was a mobile phone, and it was funny. I kept winning all the awards. What's he doing that? No, what I used to do is call the customers and say, I'd go into the store and I'd say, hey, if you call me on my mobile phone, because there wasn't many back then, and that's the reason why I shave it off. I said, sense to call me, but if I can put up, or you telling me when the stock's arrived, you'll sell. Great. And that's why I kept winning all the awards. And I think of all ways that technology can help expedite. So for me, I love people, but technology helps me get there a lot quicker. And I learned from the support in the Philippines for that two reasons. So technology, and it wasn't, I suppose, I finally looked at businesses and thought, hey, most of these people run because serving their customers, they don't have time to do that. And the other is around people. So that's what I did. I started a tech business, VA business. I had to let go because I couldn't travel there anymore. And then the tech business, I had a partner, and we, built that up to a Google partner. But that's so what I've walked in their shoes. Was our ups and downs. We ended up on a high, but it was difficult for a lot of time. So I just love to help people in a similar position to get there quicker than if they did it by themselves.
That's amazing. And I love that you are so passionate about all the different all the different ways you can help business owners and problem solve for them, because everything that you mentioned, I'm like, yep, VAs, we need that, like systems and processes, for sales and marketing. You've got that down pat. Like, in fact, I would love for our audience to know a little bit more about the sales machine, because obviously I've had that firsthand experience and I know, and that's why I have you on the podcast, because I genuinely feel that it is something that will benefit a lot of people, particularly ones that are focusing on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is a platform that's very different to Facebook. And even though we're live on Facebook right now, my major audience is on LinkedIn. My sales and marketing is from LinkedIn, and that's where the majority of my time is spent. So, could you tell us a little bit about, what you've created?
Yeah, sure. So it just once again happened out of my this was February. I got a transplant from Brendan. I don't know if you watch this, he's not on Facebook, but yeah, on the register, please donate. Or put your name. Surgeon said everything's good. You can go back to your normal life. I'm like, oh, find my health in a way any bigger because of my health. But it was removed, so I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So long story short, one of the best people in the world through my network that did LinkedIn for Tony Robbins, Jay Abraham, some of the biggest names, and
Wow.
and said, look, I'll help you. So he doesn't like to be mentioned because of the people that he works for. In a matter of months, I effectively couldn't keep up with the clients, and there was three. One is just get your profile right, because when was the last time that profile? Now they'll go to your LinkedIn profile. So make sure there's the best version of you on there. The second is because you're adding value to people. So when people want to like, know, and trust you now, because they will already find whether they want to you're putting out there. So if you're putting out know you and they like you and they trust you, it's just tapping people on the shoulder that could be right. And in the sales machine, it's a done where we give you all need to get those three things right. You just do it with your team to implement that, and we can provide some team members if needed. Unfortunately for a lot of people, they've spent experts, and they both had great. I'm like, well, I tested everything. I know what works. Just come in, join peers, and effectively profile, build your engagement and know and trust factor, and will also help you tap on more shoulders.
That's fantastic. And I love what you say about the bio and the fact that that's the first thing that people see, but often the last thing that uh, users remember to update. Because so often we think, we've got to post more often, we've got to get the engagement high, we've got to reply to messages, reply to comments, but we forget that, from time to time, our bio actually needs updating. So that's a really very, very awesome point.
Yeah, and I think I should just clarify around the do it yourself just means you're not paying an expert. Get other. I know, Phoebe, you've been great with some of our community with helping write content, right? And what you can do is sometimes what I used to do is just record, get someone like someone in your team, Phoebe, to write it. So a lot of people say I just don't have. I'm like, what? It doesn't take that much time if you direct it and you're given the resources in the right way, and then but experts that you lots of money based on all the. I think that the biggest mistakes I made when I left corporate was the same as a supplier to Coca-Cola. That they just did what they learned so many times. It's probably dollars where I picked the wrong person, and not it wasn't their fault. It was my fault, being inexperienced, cut things too much. But I think if you can, instead of taking it's at the top, if you can, use some great people, we we give you what the topic or and then use someone like Phoebe, etc., to do. Do it yourself? Not really. It's actually being.
And I think that it's great as well what you do, because you're helping people with not just like what we've discussed so far, but it just came to mind that you also help people with the right tech. Like you have a passion for new technology and programs. And, I know we both love Airtable. That's something that we have a mutual, we mutually love Airtable in the way it can, it's almost like a fancy spreadsheet. But there are so many programs out there as well that really help a business with enhancing their time and their teams and making sure that things are, run smoothly, and that you don't have to, things, it makes things less manual as well. And some of those programs that you've encouraged us to use have been really great, like ones for our CRM, or our client relationship manager, or scheduling tools, etc.
Yeah, and all I do now, I've started a new community consultants collective, and it's basically just putting together. You know, I've got small influence on the world at the moment, and what I want to do is influence. And it's you've done a spreadsheet before, and you've sort of never done it through, or even at worst later you think the right way the first time. And I think caught up in all the tools. There's like 9,400 alone, right? So there's an absolute
Yeah.
proliferation. But it's more about talking to someone that said trying to say, well, we'll buy this tool and then fit it to the business. What's the circumstance around your business? What do you want to achieve? And then to them, I'm sure we can find a tool that's best for you and really well. But some people, you'll see a Facebook
Yeah.
post and they'll and for this, and someone goes, oh, well, I use it. This is very different. I'm passionate about golf. Yes, I could. The best golfers in the world say swing it like this, but capability. I don't spend all day in the gym. Like it's my ability to their ability, and I think technology is the same. Front to get the experts to help what's right for you, because the adoption thing, how often do you hear someone says, yeah, we use SAP? It's like, well, that's such a waste. It's not the tool and the
Definitely, definitely, and I agree. Especially with what you say about not being the tool, but the process, because we could have the best tools out there and we could invest in all these different subscriptions, but if we don't have a good process, a solid recurring system, it's ultimately going to be quite costly. And it's something that we've got to be mindful of, especially when you're in digital and the world is getting more and more digital. And, and I'm not talking just social media. Obviously, in a huge sense, social media is very, very important, but how we interact with our clients as well, and the process from onboarding right through to delivery of the service is, a lot of that has gone digital now. So it's very important that we, build our business in a way that is long term going to sustain us, that can run even when we're not around, even if we have taken a holiday, or we have a week off and we want to just, maybe even relax for a few days, that our team can still be running in the background without us. So I think that's very, very important. And
yeah.
I think, Paul, you've built businesses to sell as well. That would obviously have incorporated a lot of systemizing, I can imagine, and making sure that you can value the business in a way that the buyer sees that value as well.
And like I said, back in my Coke days, like Coke is a well-run business, and some people say, well, why was that business more successful? the brand, it's really important. Like there's no one thing that did the best were the ones that actually had a repeat and a repeatable system. They did leverage technology. They did it, extremely well. Like there's no, if you're listening, Domino, there was, the reason why they were so successful, innovation and the technology. Whether pizza's any different to art or anyone else's, no, not really. But it was the system that was really successful. So when we worked with them, when we ran with them, it was great. And you can do the same thing in your business. If you want spend time with the family, do the things when you left corporate, it was the reason why you did it. System behind you and a team behind you, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that that's a really valid point, definitely, and it helps your team as well to feel like there's something solid that they're working with, and that things aren't going to just be given to them at ad hoc or changed in the blink of an eye. So I think it also gives our staff members and our team a lot of support as well, which is very important.
I mean, what's the
Paul, I
hardest? Oh, sorry, just quick.
no, yeah.
It's like you having to let team haven't built the right sales, marketing, and haven't built thing because they become like family, right? And if you're not, then that really hurts. So I think that's yes, there's to do it, which it is, but also for the team, owe it to them to build systems.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to know, Paul, what is one thing that you cannot do a day without in your business?
Else, I and find out ways to where do they want to be and can I help them? So every day.
Yeah, amazing. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And Paul, I'd love to wrap this up with some rapid fire questions so that my audience can get to know you a lot more. And for anyone that wants to get to know Paul a bit more as well and, dive deeper into what we've discussed, feel free to send him a message either on LinkedIn or, we've tagged him on this Facebook post as well for anyone that's watching live. But let's dive into the rapid fire questions.
Go for it.
So, Paul, if there was one thing that you cannot live a single day without, whether it's physical or non physical, what would it be?
Linda, my wife.
Ah, beautiful. Great, great, great answer. And who inspires you the most, or who inspired you to start and do what you do today?
I think it's my mum. So my mum had the condition. She lost all the family members. Most of our family never got to over 40. Had at 41, she had a massive heart attack. She nearly lost her life, but she still was a mum. She was a curriculum. She was in the community. She was always helping others. So mum really the condition and actually lasted, I think, longer analysis to see, someone Brendan of 30 years to give me a transplant. So yeah, mum was inspiring. Just quickly, my dad had polio as a child, and he had a upbringing. Oh, well, sorry, rough start, and both my parents in physical can always achieve more and always help others.
Yeah, yeah, that's very, very inspiring. And I think our parents have a lot to do with how we end up seeing life and how they form our the most important years of our lives. So yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Yeah, I see myself the community, the cloud collective, growing to help other better life. So in 5 years' time, I want to be doing my spare time, I want to be giving back to the community. I love to help people to mine, so support them there. And
I've lost you there. Are you
can you
there?
hear me?
Yes, yes, I can. Yep. Sorry, I missed what you said just at the very end of that.
Right. So basically play. I think the last thing I said was I want to play a bit of golf.
Yeah, that sounds great, and I think I think that a lot of what you said earlier as well. It seems like you're already doing that, so it's great to see that you are, in the place where you envision, and you're off to play golf tomorrow as well, which sounds awesome. Uh, Now, second last question: if you could leave the world with one message, what would it be? What's one thing that you'd like people to, remember?
Look, greatest thing to do is join the donor list. If people look at my situation where a mate of 30 years can make my life more enjoyable, if you to someone or put yourself on the donor, it's the biggest thing that I want to leave my legacy. People, through my experience, know that they've got the ability to as well.
Yeah, that's so amazing, what your friend has done, and what a I can imagine that, that is so life transforming, and the best gift that anyone could ever give someone. So yeah, that's huge, and what an incredible person, to offer that. And yeah, wow. Now, the last rapid fire question is: what is one big takeaway you've had recently that changed the way you see the world or the way you do things?
I think the biggest is valuable your network is. So I'm starting, and yes, I've got some people I'd love to be in touch with more. And I just reached out to my network. I've got nearly 3 year experience. So it's easy for me to look, but I've just gone through and asked them, hey, do you know also who are you looking for? And it's amazing degrees of separation, and yeah, just how powerful you know that's what I've always done. I've always given value. I've always tried back and ask how forward people are with I've learned in the last month.
Yeah, wonderful. Paul, thank you so much for your time. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show and learning more about you and hearing more about the good that you are doing in the world and the impact that you are creating in our community, especially in the business community. Is there anything that you'd like to share? Any parting words before we wrap things up?
Yeah, look, I think if you're in corporate and there's no big time to waited too long in retrospect. I think if you're in corporate and you're looking to leave, there's lots of people who are going to support you, and you'll figure it out. If you're running your own business, like we've talked about, just where the business is running, and yes, hard sometimes to build the systems, to build structure to grow, but as Michael Hyatt, a famous author, he said, if you don't have a team, you don't. I think do things all yourself and get other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such great tips. Paul, thank you so much again for your time. And thanks to everyone that tuned in live or are tuning in now. For more information on Paul Higgins and his mentoring program and also his cloud based solutions, as well as the sales machine, please make sure that to get in touch or have a look at our show notes. We'll be popping all the links to his social media handles and his website, as well as the Paul mentoring program in the show notes. And Paul, once again, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity. Loved it.
Thanks, Paul. Speak soon.
Bye.